Hi, my name is Melanie Caple and I teach a variety of drawing courses through CAE. For the little demonstration that I'm going to do today, we're going to draw on some still life elements and some botanical drawing illustration elements. And I'm going to sketch out this little dish with a gumnut and eucalypt leaf on it. Now the first thing to do to start is actually to fix our foliage element in place so that we can maintain the composition throughout the drawing. So I'm just going to use a bit of blue tape, place the gumnut on the bowl where I want it to go, and fix it in place. Perfect. All right. Now I've got my composition here, so I'm just going to sit that there. And the first thing we have to do is actually create the dish part of the drawing. Now to do that and to make sure that it's accurate, we need to use what I call a scaffold. So to create the scaffold for this, we basically create a series of frames that then allows us to draw the different curves within. So I'm going to start off really lightly with an HB pencil, and I'm going to use this, just anything around, to draw some straight lines. And I'll start off looking at how big that needs to be. So it needs to be a bit elongated. Alright, so that's going to make up this shape of the dish. So now within that as well, we've got to do the top and the bottom. So to do that, sketching some marks at the top. And sketching some marks for the bottom. And we've got to draw our centre. Alright, just put this in a little bit. Like I said, it's best to make this part really nice and accurate so that we know that our dish is going to come out with the right proportions. Now, when I'm looking at it like this, I'm looking at the curve of the top and the curve of the bottom. So to create that, we need to really evenly think about the curve that we're creating and fit it into the squares that we've created, the rectangles. So I'm fitting the top into the first part of the graph, the bottom into the second part of the graph. And trying to get them, I'm doing it really lightly at the moment, but trying to get it as even as possible. And obviously the bottom is a bit smaller than the top. So I'm making sure that that happens too. And again, rubbing out as you go. There's no shame in having to correct yourself just to make sure that it's really perfect. All right, and then after we've got our top and our bottom, we then need to think about these sides. So we need to have a look about how they sit in relation to the bottom. And loosely, like I said, really lightly and really loosely, sketching it in so we can get it as accurate as possible. Got to come in on a bit more of an angle. So then just going in, correcting ourselves a bit. A little bit more on this side. All right, now when we're happy with that, then we can start to go over it a little bit darker. So making sure we've got a really nice sharp tip. I'm going to come through and really think about what I can see in the real composition. So I'm being very, very careful to just make sure that it's as accurate as I can get it. Especially too when you're going in the darker lead. Alright. So I sketched out this using an HB pencil. And I'm actually using the HB again, just with a little bit more harder pressure to try to make that really nice sharp line. All right, now then when we look at this a little bit more, there's actually a thin sort of lip that comes up here. So I'm going to sketch that in as well. And all of these little details help make the drawing look realistic, look as it should look. You're drawing what you're seeing. So again, you know, making sure that what I'm doing is really accurate. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. We've got our dish. Again, just really paying attention to little details, little curves, making sure that's coming across correctly. Beautiful. All right, the other thing that it has to do is it actually has a bit of a dip down there as well. So we can do that. Again, following the framework of the grid. It actually makes it a lot easier working within, it's what I call scaffold, to sort of build the drawing up on the page. Beautiful. All right, now we're going to sketch in this botanical element. So I'm holding it in front of me. I'm holding it from the angle that I'm going to be drawing it at. And very loosely, when you're doing these eucalyptus branches, they're actually quite nice and easy to draw. And it's because you can have one long line and use the line to actually create the centers of the leaves or the spikes of the nuts. So making sure that that's in the right position. And I'm looking at the angle that it's on. Make sure to just really highlight this edge so that it can sit within it really nicely. Okay, so from here, very lightly, this is with the HB again, just very lightly sketching in exactly what I see. So I'm starting off by just doing that work. The way that the branches sit with it together. Looking at how thick things are, where the leaves are coming off the branch. Noting too that, see with these leaves, how where the eucalyptus attaches to the stem, that then creates the central spine. So by drawing that in, that then gives us the direction of the leaf that we're going to draw. And keeping it all really, really nice and light. And then when that central spine is in, you can start putting in the shape of the leaf. And I've just prematurely made that point. I need to make sure it's got a really lovely kink in it. And that's the beautiful thing about drawing botanicals or organic objects, is really honour those irregularities and the imperfections. It really helps create character for the drawing. All right, so that leaf is in. Now I'll sketch in these nuts. And when I'm looking at the nuts too, I'm breaking it all down into shapes. So with the nut, they've got a little trumpet part here, and then they become more curved and bulbous. So really thinking about how they sit together, they sit with each other, their shapes. And really paying attention to what you can see and what you can't see. So the little details, trying to get the angles right, the look of things protruding and receding. All right, now I'm quite happy with that sketch. So now I'm going to start to build up the areas that I want to make a little bit darker. So I'm going to start with my B, making sure my pencil's nice and sharp. And I'm going to pay attention to these gum nuts. So they have some really nice dark areas. Go in there, make it nice and light. And then also looking about the light parts that look like they're coming forward, and then the darker parts that are coming behind, and looking about how the light allows for that illusion. So we really need to use the light and the dark when we're rendering a three-dimensional object onto a two-dimensional plane, so we really get So you can see now we've got the one gum nut starting to build its form. So it's also at this point in time too that you might start to go, oh, there's just so much detail and it's starting to get overbuilding, getting a bit overwhelming. The trick when you're at this stage is to just keep going. So it might feel a bit daunting, all the detail, but the more you do and the more things start to build up, then the more you'll start to see that it's all coming together. So I'm really trying to get a sense of curvature on these gum nuts as well. Getting at any little irregular details. And I'm doing the same for all of it. So on the sticks as well, so the part of the stem that's holding up the gum nut, I'm really paying attention to that also, thinking about what is the dark underside, what would be the part that is reaching up to the light. How am I looking at those little irregularities that are on the stem? It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to have it start to come together. So the more that I do this, I'm reminding myself and saying, okay, the parts that are light, They're the bits that look like they're coming forward. The parts that are darker are the ones that I've got that are receding. And just really gently building up those details. I'm really thinking about these objects being curved. Alright, so we're starting to see this come up, making sure that the underside of the stem and the underside of the gum nuts are the darker part. Trying to keep the lines on the outside edges nice and sharp, and slowly building up the lead to create the effect that we're after. Now, I'm using a B for this. The way that you order your pencils and use your pencils can actually be quite important. So HB is a bit of a middle ground. HB has half an H lead and half a B lead. An H lead is hard and light. A B lead is soft and darker. So I like using a B for this because it does have a bit of a softness to it. Alright, now again in the leaf, I'm looking at the little irregularities and also then choosing what I want to draw. So, do I want to colour the whole leaf in? Do I want to have a look at the veins of the leaf? So this one actually does have quite a lot of little lines to it. So I might just very gently, I'm marking out the shape of the leaf itself. And then just very, very gently drawing these lines in. And it's, you know, it's definitely something like this that tests your patience, but it's one of those tricks that, you know, the more time you put into it and the more careful you are, the better it is ultimately going to look. I even test my patience sometimes doing all of this little work. And I'm making sure that I'm moving my hand around the paper as well, because I want to get the angles right. So after I've got that detailing in, I can then come back with something a bit softer. So this is a 5H, and I'm just going to lightly have a look at where the shading is on the leaf, just to add a little bit more dimension to it. So lightly cross-hatching. And then I need to come back and use the HB just to highlight this stem a bit more because it is a prominent feature of the leaf. Making sure my edges are nice and crisp. And honouring those irregularities. Alright, and I'm actually going to leave that for the time being. I really like it. The next step would be to go in and shade the vessel. And that's going to be treated in the same way. So looking at the curves, looking at what's coming forward with the light and what's dark. And there we go. Hold it up. So you can still see the slight part of the scaffold there, and we've been able to draw in the nuts and start to build them up with shape and form. I think it's looking all right. Thank you so much.